Hi, everyone. Good morning. Oh, let's try that again. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so happy to be here with you all. My name is Macharia. I came here all the way from New York to share my story of resilience, and I am thrilled to be here this morning. So I'm going to talk about resilience from a unique lens, the lens of space. Resilience is a term that I think you utilize, and you have to be comfortable with and utilize in every industry, but it's especially unique in space because space is really hard to work in. I learned that the hard way because I didn't grow up a space geek. I fell into it in a unique way, but I'm excited to share with you guys. I actually came from the entertainment world in a way. I had a screenwriting fellowship in college for a couple of years. And during that time frame, I was getting funding to do ethnographic research on American values. And every semester, I would write a script based on my research. And my last script ended up being about two women from across the world competing for a free trip to space. And that was simply inspired by a space camp jacket I got from a thrift store. I was not a space geek in the slightest. But when I was doing my research for my two main characters, there were these young immigrant women. I came to deeply understand that if these women were to pursue their dreams in the real world of the space industry, it'd be quite difficult. There weren't many women in leadership who looked like them. And there certainly weren't many female astronauts at the time, and there still aren't. So I decided, maybe there's something I can do here. Maybe I can reflect on this a bit more and see what solutions I can come up with. So I was a philosophy major in college, and I decided to write my senior thesis about democratizing and diversifying the space sector. And I wrote this paper. My peers at the time were really intrigued by all the ideas that I had to share and all the different things I was bringing to the table in regards to educating them on the unique opportunities that the space economy had to offer. And they somehow convinced me to actually try and get a job in the space sector, even though I did not study anything STEM related and I knew no one in the industry. So I graduated and I decided maybe, it's time to start networking. And I went to a space conference that I found online in Seattle. It was run by the Space Frontier Foundation, an organization that has been shaking up the world of space since the 90s. And I went to their new space conference, their annual conference. And this organization produces conferences focused on the future of space. They love to support trailblazers and visionaries, and I thought that was where I need to be, that room. So I took up my volunteer responsibilities. My main one was holding the door open for everyone. So I stood at the door and happily greeted everyone I saw. And this gentleman comes up to me and strikes up a conversation. And I tell him about my paper and my dreams of democratizing and diversifying space and how I'm trying to figure out just where to start with all of this. So the next morning, he invites me to have breakfast with him. And I tell him about my visions for the future again, and I tell him that I'm open to any opportunity that can come my way. And he says, you know what, I'd like to create an opportunity for you. And he says, I want to create an internship opportunity for you at my company. Let me go talk to my team, and I'll get back to you. That was the first week of July, and a week later, he confirmed everything. He made this internship position for me, and I found myself moving from Atlanta, Georgia to New York 3 weeks later to get started at this job, which it was interesting at the time because I really didn't know much about what he wanted me to do. He was a little vague. He said, you need to sign an NDA before we give you all the details and all of this. But at the time, I was open to, again, just any opportunity. So I get to New York, I've signed all my NDAs, and he fills me in on what we're going to be doing. So the company I was working for was called Consensus. It's a blockchain venture studio. And the founder of this company is a billionaire, the co-founder of the Ethereum blockchain. And as many billionaires do, he wanted to buy a space company. So he found one that he could afford on a nice little budget, Planetary Resources, an asteroid mining company that had really lost a lot of its momentum. And he bought this company with visions of turning it into this grand, democratized space entity, almost like a citizen-run space agency. And those visions were things that I aligned with deeply. And I was so thrilled to be a part of something that was so bold and ambitious. And we made this acquisition. I helped the team through the process. And by the time my internship was wrapping up, they offered me a full-time job to join their team. And I was so excited to dive into this. But then crypto winter happened, and we lost a lot of our funding. And my team met up, and we decided that, well, we can't exactly do this grand, ambitious thing we wanted to do, but we have to figure out how we can do something of meeting, something that still opens up access and speaks to the mission of what we all want to accomplish. So I got to work and started doing a lot of user research. I started speaking with space industry leaders from across the globe about what we had to bring to the table, the experts that we had at our team, and what our vision was, and trying to figure out what could we do to bring something together that would make a difference on a budget. And we did eventually land on a unique area of interest, space debris. And we built out this app called TrueSat, which the focus of TrueSat was to help empower people to touch the stars and contribute to the space economy from the comfort of their backyard. And to me, that was a dream of mine, to be able to make it so easy, so accessible for anyone to play a part in this growing field. And I started going out across the world. I would go out to Ethiopia and Vienna to speak at the UN World Space Forum and all these beautiful venues to tell people about what we were building and how this was going to change things for everyone. And it was a thrilling thing to be a part of. And I was so happy that we had gone from this state of destitution, trying to figure out what are we going to do next, to figuring out a new idea that people were loving and people were clinging onto. But then the pandemic happened, and we again had to shift our mindset. And so what we did was we put our IP into the hands of the people. We gave them knowledge about what we did as an asteroid mining company prior, as well as all of our new findings as we were building out the Space to Be Focused app. And unfortunately, we did have to shut down the project. And I remember that moment when we had to close our doors, and I was so optimistic, surprisingly, because I had watched us turn nothing into something wonderful so quickly. And instead of letting myself feel down and disheartened that, oh, this amazing project won't get to reach its full potential, I saw it as an opportunity to sit back on my own and think about, now that I've made a dent in the space industry, I've gotten to meet all these wonderful people so quickly, what can I do next? What other barriers can I continue to knock down and use this experience to support me on? And I took some time to think, and I ended up getting a call to go work on a project called Space Hero, which is all about, again, democratizing and diversifying space. Some wonderful people who were running that organization heard about me and the work that I was doing at TrueSat and Consensus, and they gave me a call and said, we want you to bring this enthusiasm to our organization as we work to try and send the first civilian to space in a TV show. And I said, that sounds amazing, sign me up. So I joined their team and I helped them create an ambassador program. We had 400 people from around the world coming together to reflect on not just what the significance of this TV show could do for the single winner, but how we can rally up the troops across the globe to get people excited about what the future of space means as a whole for everyone. And it was a beautiful thing to be a part of. But again, this project was being launched in the midst of the pandemic, and it was taking a little too long for my liking for it to get off the ground. So I thought, I need to find something that can allow me to take things to the next level. And I started doing consulting work with nonprofit leaders in the space sector, and it was such a joy to be able to support them and help them craft messages to get young people excited about the future of the space economy. And things started going well really, really quickly. I was quite surprised. And then as that momentum was building, I got another fun phone call. It's how my life tends to go. I get a lot of fun phone calls to do things that scare me but excite me. And the founder of the Space Frontier Foundation, Rick Tumlinson, a true space pioneer, had heard about some of the work that I was doing. And he asked me if I'd want to lead the Space Frontier Foundation. And I was like, ooh, that's a little intimidating, running this historic organization after being in the industry for all of 2.5 years, 3 years. Are you sure, Rick? That's what you want to do? You want to call me? And I was even more nervous because at the time, the organization was about $50K in debt. And I hadn't raised money of that sum at the time. And Rick told me, Kim, I will be here with you every step of the way. Don't be scared. If you are open to taking on this challenge, I got your back. And I said, Rick, okay, you know what? Why not? What do I have to lose? I have this man on my side, and as more and more people got wind of what I was going to be doing, leading this organization, I had countless mentors coming out of the woodworks trying to offer their support and their wisdom. And I felt so ready for this challenge. And I then got another amazing phone call 3 weeks before I was about to take over this organization and try and make something of it and shake it up a little bit. I had some fun, new, young energy to it. And I got a call from the old chairman of the organization, and he told me that Blue Origin had just given us $1 million grant. And I said, I did literally scream. I was on a sailboat at the time with some friends, and everyone thought I had fallen off the boat or something to that effect. But I was just simply overjoyed that I felt prepared to take on this challenge. I felt ready to figure out how am I going to raise this money. And then out of the blue, this amazing sum comes to our footsteps. And then the challenge came of, how are we going to manage this money? I had never raised $50,000. I still never managed $1 million before. But everyone around me, my board, was so incredibly supportive. And we weren't the only organization to get the $1 million. There were 19 other organizations selected. But what I found to be unique about our setup was that we were already in the mindset of being prepared to do something bold and ambitious in order to resurrect the organization. And so that's the approach that we had with the funding that we did get. We launched about 7 different projects, all centered around opening up access to the world of space to people from around the world. We launched a space-based solar power research consortium where we had universities on islands across the globe in Mauritius, a university off the island of the coast of Finland, Jamaica, Australia, and it was all spearheaded by an HBCU in DC, and this project is actually still operating, which is exciting. But we launched that ambitious endeavor to showcase that people who are affected by climate change can leverage the space sector to change their environment and to do something bold and ambitious. And then we launched podcast grants for female leaders. We launched competitions for diverse founders. And along the way, when I first started mentioning these projects and coming up with these ideas, before we ever spent a penny, I was already getting immediate pushback. The Space Frontier Foundation was launched in the 90s to advocate for the commercialization of space and to support founders and pioneers who were trailblazing. And in my opinion, since its inception, that goal had largely been achieved in ways that even the founders of the organization were marveled by. The year I took over the Space Frontier Foundation, 2021, that was one of the greatest years of space. SpaceX was doing amazing work. Blue Origin was doing amazing work. All the key subcontractors who support their missions were being raised up as the space economy was shifting in a beautiful, exciting way. And so in my opinion, I kind of thought that the industry was on track. We don't have to prioritize just opening up access in that way. We can rethink what it means to open up doors to this exciting world. So my thinking was, you know what? Let's slightly shift the focus of what the Space Frontier Foundation is doing. Let's prioritize ensuring that the industry's workforce, the industry's demographics are representative of the global population, because the space industry affects countless aspects of our daily life. And there are a handful of industries that do the same. But what's unique about space is that it's a young industry. It's malleable. It's an industry about someone who has limited experience and can quickly climb up the ladder and make serious impact. And I still think we have a small window where that will stand to be true. And it's important that we take advantage of it and create these opportunities. So as I'm hopping around and preaching these ideas to my team members and our constituents of the organization, there was a lot of pushback. People were saying, this is not what we were meant to do. This is not what we were designed for. We are not suited for this. And I started to doubt myself. I started to doubt, maybe we should dial it back. Maybe we should be doing projects that are more in line with what we've historically done. But as I saw the enthusiasm building, I started to really see that we were on the right path. The opportunities they were giving out were being savored by each of the individuals they were impacting. And furthermore, within about 3 months after receiving the grant, Blue Origin had a call with each organization that was involved, that had received the grant. And we were the last ones to have a call with Blue Origin. And I went on the call and I represented our team. And what was interesting was that they were very frank with us, the executive director at the time of Club for the Future who managed the grants. And they said, this was the call. It was all after I'd pitched all of our exciting ideas that we had planned. And they said, this was the call we were least looking forward to. The Space Frontier Foundation, we thought you guys weren't up to much. You almost didn't get the grant, to be honest. And we weren't really enthused. We didn't think you guys were going to bring much to the table, essentially. And they said, after hearing all the things that we were planning to do and the ways in which we had already started moving, we'd already started rallying the troops necessary to bring each of these projects to life. And they said, you guys are doing the best out of all these groups, out of all the 19 other organizations that they had more faith in, that they trusted more. And to hear that was so incredibly affirming. It felt like I knew what I was doing was right. I knew what I was doing was necessary. Thank you. But most people in my life, they know that side of my story. It's a pivotal part of my story, all the fun things we were able to do there. But in that time frame, I also was going through one of the most challenging things I've ever experienced in my personal life. So I like to sail. I am a sailor. I go sailing all the time in New York City. You can catch me most mornings on a boat if you're around there. And I was on a boat when I got the $1 million call. And it was a thrilling experience. It's one of the best calls of my life. And the next week, on that same boat, I got one of the worst calls of my life. I had posted a picture on Instagram of me celebrating Pride with one of my dearest friends. And it was an incredible day for me, and it was an incredible moment, and that picture summed that up so perfectly. And this person calls me, someone in my family had called me, and they were very upset about this picture. And they asked me to take it down, and I said, no, this picture means so much to me. I'm not taking this picture down. It's staying up there. And when I said no, but I'm not taking it down, they didn't take it very well. And they decided to berate me and tell me how no one in the industry is going to respect me because I'm not presenting myself well online. They told me I deserved all of these horrible things to happen to me. They even told me I deserved to be assaulted. And it was a moment, a call that set me back so deeply. In public, I was hopping around and gallivanting and preaching the wonders and joys of space and smiling and trying to bring joy to everyone I saw. But when I was off the clock, it was a totally different story. And I spent 3 months isolating myself while simultaneously managing this unique opportunity that I had in the space sector. And there came a point in time 3 months after that call where I reached my breaking point, and I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore. I've lost my sense of self, and I was incredibly distraught. And I ended up getting a call. I called my aunt in Boston, and I went up to Boston. And around that time frame, my lease was about to be up. I had 1 more month left in New York City, or in this apartment on this lease. And I'm talking to my aunt, I'm boo-hooing to her, And she says, Kim, if you need to come, to a different city, start over, take a break from things, reconnect with yourself, that's okay. Maybe you should leave New York. You don't really actually need to be there. You're operating everything you're doing remotely. Space Frontier Foundation, my work there was remote. I was consulting remotely. She said, you don't have to be in New York. And I thought, wait, I've been here for 3 years. Why are you saying that? I feel like New York feels like home. She's like, well, you can do what you're doing almost anywhere. Perhaps a change of environment, a change of scenery is what you need. And I thought, actually, no. I don't think I've done what I need to do in New York. And I gave myself, that was the first week of October of 2021. I gave myself until the end of the month when my lease was meant to renew to figure out if I could do something of meaning in New York City, something I could only do in New York. And I started making calls. I made a lot of calls to a lot of friends trying to figure out what opportunities are available right now. And I gave a call to a dear friend of mine, Christina Korb. And I don't know if you guys remember, before I tell this story, I got into space because of a screenwriting fellowship where I wrote this play, musical comedy about two women competing for a free trip to space. Only a handful of people know about that script at the time. I didn't talk about it as much. But she calls me and she says, Kim, I have a really interesting opportunity for you. There's an organization that's newly launching. They're looking for an executive director. And ultimately, they want to launch a global contest where they send two young women from around the world to space. And I'm like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Easy, yes. And she then told me, but before they get to the global contest, they really want to hone their model and launch a contest in New York City. And I was like, okay, there we go. That's the ticket. And literally, I started that. I had a call with their team the next week. It was an easy yes for them, thankfully, to bring me on board. And next thing I know, November 1st, within a month of me having my unfortunate breakdown, I was starting this new job where I was going to be launching this citywide contest where we gave away a zero-G flight to one girl in every borough. And it turned out to be an experience of a lifetime, but still going on. Within 6 months of me getting that job, I was being followed around by NBC New York in the halls of high schools in New York City. I had secured for free a billboard in Times Square where we had 24 of our girls, of our finalists from our first competition featured. And the tagline said, let's talk gender equity in space. And within 6 months of me having this moment, of me starting this job, I really started to make a difference in the city of New York. And it felt amazing. And I would tell my mentees about my journey into the industry at the time, folks from other organizations. And it was such a beautiful thing to be able to so quickly turn my entire life around and to immediately be able to open unique opportunities up to these young women that I was working with. In addition to our zero-G flight, more opportunities just kept flooding in the door. We sent our girls to a leadership camp in Huntsville, Alabama. We even had a private roundtable session with the U.S. ambassador to the UN, where the girls got to speak to her about the wonders of space and how it was going to impact and benefit the world achieving the SDGs. And it was amazing to be able to have that opportunity. And the opportunities there have just continued to grow and flourish when it comes to space prize. We've launched contests in Paris and Portugal, and now we're getting ready to launch a contest. We just launched it, actually, yesterday, announced it. We're going to be sending 150 girls to an all-inclusive space camp at the Intrepid Museum from across the country, even internationally. And it's crazy to me to think that in all the moments that I've mentioned to you thus far, I could have chosen to take a step back. I could have chosen to pause and to shift and to make myself smaller. But every time I faced one of these setbacks, I looked within myself and I dug and I found that strength. And each moment of each little success was a sign to me that I was on the right path. And I'm so grateful that I've been able to stick on that path and impact the young women that I have. And I know that everyone in this room has the chance to impact countless people around them as well. And I hope that you guys are doing what you can to stay courageous. In addition to sharing my story, I want to share a few stories from astronauts and such that have inspired me along the way. But first, I'd like to showcase this. So since I have entered the industry, I've gotten to be on a lot of really great stages. And one that was really, really special to me was the photo in the middle. I was speaking at Comic-Con last year, San Diego, and I spoke on a panel called Actual Gays in Space. And it was so funny to me that just the summer before, I had someone in my life who was very disheartened about a photo that I'd posted of me at Pride, and almost radically shifted my entire journey in the space sector. And within a year, I got to talk about what it means to be a queer person in the space sector on one of the biggest stages in the world. And it was such a thrilling moment to me, and I got to share why the space sector needs more people of diverse background and such. And it feels so wonderful to be able to live that out. But although since I've entered the space industry, I have seen shifts in the way that the industry looks. More and more female astronauts are taking flight, which is so exciting. But right now, only 20% of the industry's workforce is made up of women. And that number has actually been quite stagnant for a couple decades now. It hasn't been shifting. And so right now, that's what's driving me. It's driving me to push past every obstacle that I'm coming across as I continue to champion this cause. So, before I get into these astronauts, their beautiful, beautiful stories, I want you guys to just see for a bit what this representation currently looks like. We have made significant strides when it comes to getting more people of color, more women in the space industry, but we still have a lot to go. The numbers that you see here, this is not what the world looks like. And it can be changed, though. It really can. I think people get overwhelmed by the notion of space because going to space is hard, it's expensive, it's incredibly challenging. But I fully believe that it's a worthwhile pursuit, entering the space industry. And no one knows that better than some of these people I want to discuss with you. Has anyone here heard of Ed White? He is one of the most spectacular unsung heroes of the space industry. So in the 60s, Ed was a pilot. He was in the Air Force, and he got a unique opportunity that he tried his best to take full advantage of. Back at that time, Kennedy was running for president, and the NAACP was negotiating with Kennedy. In order for Kennedy to secure their endorsement, one of their many asks was to have a black astronaut. So Kennedy said, yes, if I win, that's what you're gonna get. And so when he was in office and they were looking for astronauts, that he ensured that they went out and found someone who could live up to all the requirements they had for astronaut candidates at the time. And they found Ed White. And they plucked him out of obscurity and turned him into an absolute star. And he fought so hard to qualify for the program. People were deliberately throwing countless obstacles in his way because of various racist motivations. But he was so determined to make it through. So Ed, within his early journey in the Air Force, he got plucked out of obscurity. Next thing you know, he's getting fan mail from thousands of people across the country. He's on magazine covers, which made it a little hard for him to study and prepare to be an actual astronaut, as he was in the astronaut pool of candidates. But he was so determined to do both, to be a successful astronaut and to also be an inspiration to people around the world. And he did that. But what happened was Kennedy died, and he lost his champion. He lost the person advocating for him. And it was made clear very quickly that he wouldn't stand a chance, that no one was going to have his back. And so he left the program, and he spent decades then becoming an artist and spotlighting other trailblazers, other people who got to live up to their fullest potential. And fast forward to now, he's now actually an honorary Space Force member, and he has mentored and counseled countless astronauts especially astronauts in the Black community. And he is a true example of what it takes of the importance of establishing legacy and why it matters to stay resilient if you want future generations after you to make a difference. And I also want to spotlight very quickly Peggy Whitson. She's the first female commander of the ISS. She was rejected to become an astronaut, and it took her 10 years from her initial application to when she ended up becoming an astronaut. And what I love about her story is that she viewed those 10 years as the absolute best preparation for the future that was ahead of her. She's personally my favorite astronaut because of that. She was one of the oldest, I believe the oldest female astronaut to go to space at the time. And as her journey progressed, she eventually became the first female commander of the ISS, the only female to command the ISS twice, and now she works for ASTM and helps to command their missions as well. And lastly, Cyan Proctor, a dear friend of mine. I took her sailing a couple weeks ago, and she is the first African American woman to pilot a spacecraft. And what I love about her story, which if you find me after, I will chat your ear off about her story. I know way too many anecdotes. She had applied to be a NASA astronaut, and so she made it to the top 47 out of thousands of applicants. And when she made it to that portion of the application process, she unfortunately got a call that she wouldn't be going all the way. But she stayed true to the course, and she continued to pursue her passion for space exploration. And she ended up applying for Inspiration 4 via a Twitter contest. Most people, I'm sure, discouraged themselves from applying because they thought the odds weren't in their favor, but the application pool was only 200 people for that contest. And she won, and she became the first female commercial spaceship pilot. And she is, again, a true testament towards staying the course. I know I think I do have to wrap up, but I've had so much fun being here with you guys. So I want to just leave you guys all with this message of we all have the power to influence, shape, shift, and drive the world around us. And I want you guys all to really reflect on your power to change the world around you and let that drive the resilience that you continue to work and cultivate. That's what's driven me thus far, is knowing that each challenge I come across, if I can survive it and surpass it, it's going to impact countless lives, countless people. And I know that's the same for each of you. Each of the challenges that you encounter, if you can rise above it and move past it, it's not just going to change your life. It's not just going to impact your world. It's going to impact the world around you on a great, beautiful scale. And so I hope that you guys continue to stay the course as we wind down the rest of 2023. And thank you so much again for having me here. It's been a true pleasure.